Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to the Manson Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the icon Marilyn Manson. I am your co-host, Alex Sinclair.
And I'm your other co-host, Jenna Arkansas.
Welcome to episode 16, The Golden Age of Tours, where we are going to discuss Manson's almost 40 years of touring eras. He has lived a lot of lives on the road. Manson's tours have always been very controversial, and attending them has been life-changing for his fans. Everything from the good, the bad, and the ugly of the tours we are going to get into. So let's get started. This is our 16th episode, and to be honest, guys, it is going to be a really hard episode to try to follow up from Pogo's episode. Our streaming numbers are absolutely insane. They're almost to 8,000 just on YouTube alone. So that's not counting the other streaming services. So it's probably close to 10,000 at this point, which is insane. So thank you to all the listeners out there. We really appreciate it. And we knew how special that interview was. And for Pogo to agree to do that was really cool. So thank you again to Pogo, and thank you again to his wife. So Manson launched a fucking bomb on us fans. We never thought that this was ever going to happen. But Manson announced his 30th anniversary shows for Antichrist Superstar on Halloween this year, and then also on November 1st at the Wiltern in LA.
Holy shit.
Can you fucking believe that? This has been something that fans have been talking about since the dawn of time. I feel like this is something that we never thought was going to happen. The 25 years was what? Obviously 5 years ago, so 2021. We know why that never happened, but who knows if anything was even in the cards for that. However, I think the 30th year anniversary just holds more weight to begin with. It's going to be a life-changing concert, and congratulations to all the fans who were able to get tickets because tickets sold out immediately.
Definitely a event to not fuck around about. I know there were so many people trying to find tickets and trying to get them when they went on sale, which it was crazy. I mean, I cannot remember what was that queue. I think it was said there was like 10,000 people ahead of me, and I was like, what in the fuck? So yeah, it's fucking intense, but I mean, not only that, it's just who thought that was gonna happen?
And it just kind of came out of nowhere too, because everyone's still waiting for chapter 2.
Yes.
We're all very excited still for that. So when we got that announcement out of very left field, I mean, first of all, we never thought that that would happen.
But I will say it is very nice that we got that much of a notice in advance, because
That is true.
Because sometimes these tours get announced and it's like, oh shit, I got a day or maybe a couple of hours to figure out my life real quick. So it is good that we got that far in advance.
Marilyn Manson also opened the fashion show for Enfants Riche de Premis for Paris Fashion Week. He opened with Walking for the clothing line, and he also opened the show with a rendition of Warm Boy that was absolutely just bone-chilling. So it's a French clothing line, and I absolutely love the look of their clothes. It's so goth and like militant. The scenery was great. It was snowing. It was so super winter goth. And then you have Marilyn Manson just standing there belting out Warm Boy. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And Manson looked absolutely phenomenal. Tour starts in a couple of days, and hopefully this episode is out before that comes out, because it's very on trend, because we're talking about Manson's tours. His spring tour kicks off on April 22nd in Highland, California. And this is also going to be the first show with Tim Skold.
I know everybody is very anxious to see the lineup because there's so many people fighting over what Piggy's doing, what Tim's doing. I'll just be glad when we can all just sing a song about the lineup of the band.
We still are waiting on chapter 2. We don't know anything. We promise we're not withholding information, but even if we had information, we wouldn't tell you guys, but we really don't have any information. However, I am having a sneaky suspicion that something is holding this release up. I could be wrong.
Clearly something is up.
And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that to be a bad thing.
I think that's just some analytics of record company stuff.
We are all waiting, and we're all still very excited for that, because this is going to be a very long year of Marilyn Manson and touring. So I hope everyone is geared up because once April 22nd starts, it just keeps going. So good luck to everyone. You guys will see us at shows for sure. So if you see us, come say hey, and we'll be doing interviews and a bunch of other fun stuff. So there you go.
You see me, you see me.
So let's get into the golden age of tours, Marilyn Manson's never ending eras of tours. I mean, this goes all the way back to the 1990s. He toured around Florida for years. If you guys have listened to the Pogo interview, Pogo basically said their earlier shows in the bars and clubs and stuff, they tried to do anything shocking, anything for shock value. They had women in cages, kids in cages, they had props of all kinds, you name it. If they thought that it was something shocking and the crowd would love it and go nuts, that's what they did. They were a part of the shock rock genre that was in Florida at that time. And they toured Miami, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm over and over and over and over again for years until they opened up for Nine Inch Nails for the Self Destruct tour in 94. They were obviously doing that tour to support Portrait of an American Family, and that was their first big break of getting out on the road and getting out of Florida.
What a time to be alive during that time. I've read so many people's experiences back in the day of that, and it's so great because it seems like it was so easy to see the beginning times. I've seen several people say, oh, yeah, we were able to go here and see them, one night at this place, or, oh, then a couple of nights later, we'd be able to see them here. That had to be a time to be alive to see those early shows. That's so special.
I think most of us would give our limbs to see Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails go on tour again. I mean, that would be the end of me. I don't think I would be able to compute that in my brain. So this did happen. This happened more than one tour too. They did the Self-Destruct tour, which was only 12 shows. Because you have to remember too, Nine Inch Nails was still trying to make a big name for themselves. They had Pretty Hate Machine out already at that time. They had the EP Broken out, and then the Downward Spiral was out at this time. All of those records are insane now, and everybody loves those records, and those are like staples pretty much. But back then, Nine Inch Nails was still kind of in their early stages. I mean, they were big, of course, yes.
Nine Inch Nails back then was still very scary to people, and also controversial just because of the blasphemy. The mashup of Manson and Nine Inch Nails was perfect and on brand and everything. But at that time, it was Portrait and Downward Spiral. How crazy would it have been for it to have been Antichrist and Downward Spiral?
Oh, I don't think no.
that would have been wild.
That would have lit places on fire just from the energy itself. Okay, so then they go on to the further down the spiral tour with Nine Inch Nails. So this was in August of 94 and it ended in December of 94. Manson was still supporting Portrait. I mean, they were supposed to play Madison Square Garden, but it didn't happen because there was an injury to Robin Fink, who was Nine Inch Nails' live guitarist at the time. Madison Square Garden, that's fucking huge. This was a very big tour. It's like they got off tour and then went on this tour and it just blew up because the demand was there because, people started learning more about Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. Their last show for the Further Down the Spiral tour, it was December 11th, 94 in Philly. Trent Reznor decided to put Chippendales male dancers on the stage during Dope Hat while Manson was performing, and Manson is visibly upset. It's very clear that Manson does not like pranks, and I don't fucking blame him because the stage is his business.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
And then it goes even further. That after they got off the stage, Trent Reznor and the whole crew of Nine Inch Nails, they handcuffed them, sprayed whipped cream all over them, and threw them in the back of a car. I think video just sort of recently came out about this. I don't think it's been seen before, maybe a couple months ago. I mean, I could be wrong, but you could visibly see Manson is so upset. He is not happy with anything that's going on, and I don't blame him. I mean, think about it for a second. This was obviously back in the early 90s. If this happened today, it would not fly.
They're all handcuffed.
Manson's whole band.
Yeah, that story is not cool, and it definitely wouldn't fucking fly today. I mean, I get it, it's the 90s at that point. It would definitely put me in that position in the future. If somebody tries to pull that shit on me, you're all fucking fired.
Yeah. And of course, at that time, Manson is the opening act for Nine Inch Nails. So I think he felt like maybe he had to deal with it, which is really fucked up. But you can just see in his face. I mean, I'm really good at body language. I could just physically see that he is like, very unhappy. A lot of people were commenting, like, oh my God, it's so funny. This is so funny. Oh my God. And I'm like, no, it's really not. Because also, you have to think about something. This was back in December 11th, 1994. This was in Philly. December in Philly is freezing. These guys are all wet and sweaty from performing. Not only that, but they hardly have any clothes on because they all have weird costumes or outfits or whatever. They have makeup on. They look fucking freaky as shit. And they were driven somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and they had to have a scavenger hunt to find the keys to undo the handcuffs.
Yeah, so you're in below degree weather. You ain't got a cell phone. I know some of our listeners are extremely young, but there was a time in history where there are no cell phones or anything to get you fucking anywhere. Just imagine being taken out in the middle of fucking nowhere in below degree weather, handcuffed, and you're just left to your own devices, and you gotta figure out a way to get back to where the fuck you are.
And Trent's just in the video laughing his ass off. Just laughing his ass off. A lot of people were saying that that was hazing. I kind of think that it was. I'm actually kind of shocked that that didn't get more blowback since that video recently surfaced. But, Trent is an angel and Manson's the devil. So there you go.
I don't think that'll ever get the coverage that it probably needs to, or just, like the attention to detail of that.
Their first headlining show was very shortly after the Further Down the Spiral tour, and it was in support of their Portrait of an American Family album, Still. That was their first headlining show, and they played 47 shows. That's pretty big. What happened on that tour that was kind of crazy, that's when Manson got arrested in Jacksonville, Florida.
Which also, if you have not seen that mugshot, it is legendary.
I think that's the only time he's ever really been arrested. He got arrested for violating the Adult Entertainment Code. He was performing oral sex on a prosthetic dick on an opening band's female band member. And also, it said somewhere that they thought that he was urinating on the crowd, which I don't think he's ever done. I don't know how true that is. So the Jacksonville police arrested him and took his mugshot, and he stayed a night in jail. Okay, so Manson then goes from having a headlining tour to opening up for Danzig's 4 tour. And that was from March of 95 to May of 95. And then he goes back on a headlining tour for Smells Like Children. That went from June of 95 to February of 96. And that did 105 shows. That is insane. That has to be probably his biggest tour, especially in the earlier days.
That would conclude Daisy Berkowitz as well.
This was also the first tour that Manson started using the stilts. Manson also did something rather shocking that he kind of carried on throughout his tours as the years went on. This is also when he started to cut himself on stage with broken glass. The shock rock is definitely elevating, which then brings us in to probably one of the most controversial tours of all time is the Dead to the World tour.
Dead to the World is the most notorious. This has literally got it all. This is the era of everybody losing their fucking minds. Not just the fans, but the religious folk just protesting and all the craziness that came with it. People just did not believe what they were seeing, where this tour starts and ends.
I'm not sure how many people are going to get this reference, but Manson really changed the whole rock tour, a rock show. I mean, there was Kiss, And then I feel like there was Marilyn Manson, you know what I mean? And I feel like Madonna did that for pop concerts for the Blonde Ambition tour. I put the Blonde Ambition tour and Dead to the World tour very close together. And there's also a lot of similarities. If you watch both tours, Madonna changed the fucking world with that tour. And I feel like Manson did the same, but in rock metal music. And Dead to the World was so theatrical. I loved those stairs that he had with the stained glass, and that's the first time we ever see the podium that he brought along for touring for so many years. That was like the quintessential Manson show, was to see him on that podium tearing the Bible apart or lighting it on fire or throwing it to the crowd. It was dirty. It was controversial. Everybody was up in arms about this. They tried to cancel his shows numerous times. They tried to keep him out of towns. This was just out of this world, something that people have never seen. You also have to remember that there were no cell phones. There is obviously a VHS tape about this, but it only shows so much. It doesn't show every show, it doesn't show every song he performed. So I feel like whoever got to actually witness this is so lucky, because I feel like the VHS of this is just a little snippet of what was really going on in those arenas.
There also had to be a lot of people that were very disappointed because sometimes those shows would start. I don't know how many there were. I know that the one that happened even in Memphis, and this is just from people telling me this from when I was a kid, that he started and they got pissed off about something that he was doing on stage and they stopped the show. I would love to hear some stories from people that got just a little bit of it and then it was like, nope, cut the cord, done.
Oh my god, yeah, especially now because,
Yeah.
it's literally a historic tour. We also did an interview with Joseph Coltice, who directed the Dead to the World documentary. He told us that it was one of the most wildest times in his life, and that the shows were absolutely wild, and that he was getting spit on and trampled on just trying to catch footage of Manson performing live. He also said that it was almost like watching Kiss, because that's how important this tour was.
There wasn't anything else that was like that. And I mean, and truthfully, I've seen people ask this before because as far as that production went, at that time of the early 90s, we're talking on a big scale here. I'm not talking about bands that the common household would not know their names, because obviously there are bands and there are punk bands and things like that that did crazy shit. But on a large scale here, where people actually know, and I mean, people were scared of Marilyn Manson. The name alone was freaking people out. But on the large scale of things, nobody do none of that shit. Nobody was doing anything of that, since like Alice Cooper. Manson was doing a lot worse shit, clearly. But I just don't really think people have asked before, like, who is a big band that has a large production that you can compare that kind of stuff to?
I don't think anybody back then.
Nothing back then. And I have said this before that the only band that I can think of during when I was able to start going to shows or anything, and even in the beginning when I saw this band, it still wasn't like a huge production. It is today. It's a much bigger production, but that's Slipknot. That's all I can really honestly compare it to. Who was doing what Manson was doing then? Nobody was.
I mean, and I hate to say this, I hate to keep going back to this, but the only other person that was pushing the envelopes like Manson was Madonna.
In a completely different genre, and people fucking hated her too.
I know. I mean, think about it. Those were the only two people. Who else was big at that time? Oh, and also, wait a second. Wasn't this a era of boy bands and Britney Spears? It was.
Yeah, I mean, it would be right along that time.
Yeah, it was right along the time of Backstreet Boys and Sync, all of that bullshit. If people were doing shit like that, it was way underground. It was some shit that we don't even know
That's what
about.
I'm saying. On like a large scale, like where somebody knows your name, because yes, obviously there are punk bands, and I'm not even going to try to name every subgenre of a band that would be doing stuff, but obviously there's underground things that were doing that, but we're talking about on a large scale where it's getting press coverage. I would honestly say until Rammstein came along. That is a very large production. Nobody was pulling Rammstein shirts from their kids. They were pulling Manson's shirts from their kids.
So Dead of the World had multiple legs. This is also the first tour where Manson had multiple legs for the same tour. He had 8 different legs to this. He toured North America multiple times and he went to Japan, Australia, South America, Europe. He went everywhere for this. So
97's the first year they did Ozfest too. That's where they met Pantera.
So the Mechanical Animals tour is where it gets a little fucking squirrely. Now, this is where, outside of Manson obviously being protested and controversial, this is where a lot of things actually went wrong. First of all, before we talk about this, it does get a little confusing because there were also multiple legs to this tour with different names. We're going to try and do our best here. We were too young for this, so sorry. This tour started in June of 98 and it was called the Mechanical Animals Tour, and it started in Europe. Then it went to North America, and then this also went to Australia as well, and that was in 99 when they went to Australia. So this tour was 7 months long. When things start to get a little hairy here is when Manson and Hole go on tour, and it's called the Beautiful Monsters Tour. Now, this is another tour I would probably give my limbs for because I would love to see Manson and Hole together. For obvious reasons, it did not go well because Courtney and Manson were constantly at each other's throats. And also, it reads that there might have been some business aspects to it that were not benefiting Courtney. But this tour only made it to 12 dates. It says 12, but then it also only lists 9. Courtney ends up leaving after the Los Angeles show. She said that she's tired of Manson bullying her and saying bad things about her and blah, 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 blah. She was kind of like a drama queen. But also, we did some fan polling here. We had fans write in that were actually at these shows that could kind of give us some insight that we can't get from what's on YouTube, because there's not a lot on YouTube because there's no cell phones, there's no real technology yet, or social media, whatever. A lot of the fans said that it was very obvious that the crowd was there to see Manson and that they were just not very receptive to Hole. I think that got under her skin. And also, we have some insight from Michael Beinhorn that there might have been some competitive blood there to begin with. I mean, no hate to Courtney. We all love Courtney. But Courtney is a very competitive person and she always wants to be number one. She wanted to be the best. She wanted to be everything. Michael Beinhorn produced Celebrity Skin and Mechanical Animals at the same time, and Mechanical Animals went to number 1 and Cole's Celebrity Skin went to number 8. So I'm sure Courtney felt like kind of like chopped liver compared to Manson. So that probably got under her skin. There's a lot there that we obviously don't know the whole story about. Manson and her were both saying things to each other on stage. The Beautiful Monsters tour makes it to LA on March 14th, 1999. They're playing the Forum, and a fan wrote in and told us that he was there and that the crowd was booing Courtney, and she was very upset and, said some things to the crowd. And then she also hexed the stage. Shortly after, Manson goes on stage and he's performing, and then he breaks his ankle.
Coincidence?
He had to cancel the tour, and then Courtney left. Courtney dipped. She's like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It was almost like perfect timing. And is that a coincidence or not? I don't know.
A coinky dink? I don't know.
But then that tour ends, and then Manson picks it up again, and this is now called The Rock is Dead Tour. He plays 34 shows. This is where something else happens that's very controversial. April 28th, 1999 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This is the scene and the location and the show of the smiley face incident. Some fans may or may not know about this. During Manson performing Antichrist Superstar, the podium gets set up, and obviously Manson cannot see the front of the podium because he's coming from the back and he's on the podium. He can't see what's in front of it. I'm sure at some point he leaned over because he does all these crazy moves on the podium, and he sees that the crew put a huge yellow smiley face where the shock symbol is supposed to be. A lot of people might hear this story and think that Manson might have been overreacting, but I don't believe so, because this is a very important part of the show where he goes on the podium and rips up a Bible, and he's portraying this image to everyone. He's really trying to sell it to everyone. He believes it. He wants them to believe it. And you have a fucking smiley face on your podium. And he fucking flips out and he walks off the stage. The show ends early. Not only that, but the crowd gets so upset that they start rioting inside and outside of the venue, which led to multiple arrests.
As you should, because I would be fucking pissed. No offense, but at that point, if you've been on tour with Manson, don't do that. Don't do that. That's fucked up. You might have thought it was funny, but I got a feeling that you probably got your ass fucking fired after that.
According to Pogo's wife, because she saw one of my posts asking about if anybody was at that show on her Instagram, she's not 100% sure, but she did say that according to Pogo, if she remembers correctly, that everybody on the crew got fired.
I, as they should.
I'm sure a lot of people know this, but if you don't, Manson is a perfectionist when it comes to his performances. He does not fuck around. If there's something off, sound wise or light wise or prop wise, he throws a fit because this is his area of business. He takes it very seriously. And I do believe that if he wasn't the stickler that he is about his performances, that he wouldn't be where he is today. Manson is where he is today for a reason. He's an excellent businessman and he's very smart, but he's also very strict when it comes to certain things. And he wants things to be portrayed a certain way. And putting a smiley face where the shock symbol is supposed to be on his podium, that is just so insulting. Because of him breaking his ankle, which was 8 days after Columbine, and the Courtney thing, the Columbine thing is what really sent this over the edge. Really sent this over the edge. He decides to cancel the rest of the tour out of respect for Columbine. Also, I think a lot of things just went wrong. And also, obviously, his ankle was broken, and that takes weeks, if not months, to heal. This tour had a lot of theatrics. The TV cross coming up with him on it, that was one of the best entrances ever. The set list was amazing. The energy was amazing. His looks were amazing.
This is probably my favorite era of attire.
He was glam rock, Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, times a million. So one of my other favorite things that Manson did during this tour is he portrayed himself getting shot on stage. I mean, obviously, clearly it was fake and it was all special effects or whatnot, but it looked so real. And if you were in that crowd, he had the target on his head already from Columbine. It was deep. It was dark. It was deep. It shocked a lot of people. That was probably one of my favorite stunts from Manson. Now we're going to go into Guns, God, and Government tour. Clearly, he did carry on with the Mechanical Animals tour after Columbine. He picked it up after he canceled those shows in LA because he went to Europe and Japan. This is the first new era after Columbine, and clearly this tour is in support of Hollywood, which is his response to Columbine. This does have a VHS to it. This had a lot of production to it. This was a very sleek tour. To be completely honest, I'm going to be honest, and Hollywood is one of my favorite eras from Manson, but I do wish that this tour had a little bit more grime to it because I feel like it was just very sleek and it was very cool. Don't get me wrong. I love that huge podium that he rises up on during Crucifixion in Space. I love his entrance with the chariot.
He's got the huge headdress and comes out on the chariot.
Obviously, he's very angry and very upset. There was a lot of gun props. His mic stand was a rifle. Something else that he did that was super controversial is he dressed up as the Pope. He had a lot of aggression, for sure. I know that concert that was officially filmed for Manson, that was done totally separately. The tour ended and then they had one more show in LA, and that's when they did the production for that. So I don't know if it's just because of that. I loved all of his costumes with the dead animals and stuff. I just feel like it was too sleek.
I definitely watched Dead of the World way more, but it was polished shock almost. He had the microphone stand with the guns, which is very iconic. I will say that because I don't think anybody else has done that. The only other iconic microphone stand I can think of is Jonathan Davis's Giger one, and maybe Steven Tyler with his scarves on there. I know Manson ended up having a microphone with a knife and, all of those things. I want to say the stage looks and things during that time is definitely one of the most replicated, I want to say. That was just straight white makeup and the black bar across the middle of his face. I can't tell you how many many children I still see to this day that have that exact makeup on. They came off of Mechanical Animals and they went into Hollywood, and people felt like they went backwards because they went back to more of a goth look.
He also did Ozfest for this. So he had a whole Ozfest leg to this to support Hollywood. He went to Japan twice, actually. That's when they did the MTV Diary. I remember now.
Yes.
Then we go to 2003 with the Grotesque burlesque show. This is where a lot of props come back.
Okay, so the style for this, I think, which probably most people have seen that interview that he does with David Letterman. He's asking him about his look. He's asking him about his lipstick and all of that, but I think he took a lot of the looks from the 20s, very militant, also very stylish. It's a beautiful era of just style. He related a lot to the censorship of that time, much like how he was always trying to be censored. So I think that's kind of where he took it from.
For the Grotesque Burlesque show, obviously, that is in support of the Golden Age of Grotesque album. For the album and for the show, he used a lot of the 1930s vaudeville burlesque themes. And he also had 2 live dancers. Their names are Andrea and Vanessa. They were heavily featured in the tour. The dancers were dressed with latex prosthetic breastplates and vaginas. At one point during the show, it looked like they were conjoined twins. Also, something that was very different for Manson is he started playing with the robotic mannequins. He had one that resembled Dita Von Teese, who he was married to at that time. She would come out with a cart of absinthe and acted like she was serving him absinthe. That was during his performance of Tourniquet. What he would do with the mannequin is he would disassemble it by removing its arms and placing them in the cart while singing to it. Something else that Manson did was he played the saxophone at the end of the Golden Age of Grotesque. Manson also likes to play around during this era with a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff, because if you get down to the nitty-gritty of Mickey Mouse, it's very controversial. It's not what it seems, and Walt Disney in general. So he takes that to the forefront. That brings this black face where he does the reverse mouse face.
There was a lot of different looks in that, though. There was like, because he does the white with the red around his eyes and the red around his mouth.
A lot of the art and stage props were influenced by Gottfried Helwin, who's a photographer that did a lot of very controversial photo shoots, kind of violent photo shoots that are made to look very artistic.
2003 is the very first time that I saw Manson. If I had to look, I think it was July 17th. I was 17 years old. That was a huge production, even for being on Ozfest. Honestly, I was kind of shocked that it still had that big of a production, because during Ozfest, they had to turn those bands over pretty quick. It had that big brick looking background. I remember people coming out and playing the drums. I don't know if it's the exact same ones, but the same ones that Daniel used to play.
The stage props definitely had a brutalist kind of look.
There was a white podium. It had the MM like font from Golden Age of Grotesque. It had an M on the. I don't think it had the MM, but I think it just had an M on it, if I remember correctly. That was really cool, because been thinking about seeing the podium, the Antichrist podium. We got that white one though. That was a very lively production even then for Ozfest.
His stage props, the way that the band looked, just everything was just very elevated. That was a very sharp tour. The fashion and his grills, and that was all very new, and he was really presenting himself for a whole different era. I mean, this was coming off of Hollywood, which was almost like a war album, a survivalist album, an angry album, and Golden Age, I mean, it definitely is angry and has a lot of teen angst in it. The fashion is just insane in that. You have to give props where props are due. So then this brings us into Against All Gods tour. This was to support his Lest We Forget album. This was kind of similar to Golden Age. I guess fashion-wise, he had a lot of very frilly looks. I love his black and blue kind of frilly blouse thing, and he was wearing a skirt. And actually, I just learned that all of those costumes were made from Vivienne Westwood. It continues his very polished and elevated fashion look.
That when he started wearing the eyelash strip.
Yeah, the white eyelash.
That's another very stylish era.
Then we have the Rape of the World tour, which is my first tour that I went to. This was in 2007. It started in Europe. When it came to America, it was with Slayer. It was a co-headlining tour. I'm going to be honest, I really do not remember a lot of props for this. I think he did the podium. The crowd was just so weird because I feel like the majority of it was to see Slayer. At this time, this was in support of his Eat Me, Drink Me album, which at the time really was not going over well. I think it's really appreciated now. I do really like that album, but when it came out, I'm going to be honest, it really was not hitting. It was a very interesting tour because if they would have toured with Slayer during, I don't know, Antichrist or even Hollywood, then that would have been different. But he was touring with Slayer for a very romantic album. It just didn't really gel. I'm gonna be honest.
That was like a sweet vampire Manson tour. I've seen Slayer a lot. I can't imagine that would have went over that great. Meshing the crowds.
I think he opened. Yeah, he opened for Slayer, if I remember correctly. And I remember there wasn't really that many people in the pit. It was so easy to just go straight up to the rail. I was in shock because I couldn't believe that I was finally seeing Manson for the first time. I'm just going to be honest, this was not his best era, clearly, for obvious reasons that we don't have to talk about. But he still put on a really great show. He did the hits. His set list was actually really great. This was the first time that people saw Manson dressed down. He was dressed kind of casually. He did multiple legs of this tour, but when I saw him, from what I can remember, he did not have a lot of makeup on. He came out in a cutoff shirt and just kind of kept it like that. He just looked different.
It's very different because he was coming off of a huge tour that was very focused on fashion.
Exactly.
I do remember a lot of interviews and stuff around that time. It is just very toned down. It's almost like a brighter red lipstick and just a little bit of eyeliner and maybe some of the strip lashes and stuff.
But then I think as the tour went on, he did get a little bit more fashionable. He did start bringing out a lot of props. He brought out this huge giant chair because a lot of the theme for Eat Me, Drink Me is Alice in Wonderland, very big things when you're supposed to be so tiny to make it look like you're hallucinating. He had a robotic figure to resemble the woman that shall not be named, but who's influenced the whole album of Eat Me, Drink Me. This robot would come on stage looking like her, and he would take the head off and play around with it. Manson definitely ups his game with the makeup. He has the bright pink band across his eye. A milestone for that tour was in January 19th, 2008 in Orlando, Florida at the Hard Rock Live. I was there for this. This was Twiggy's first show back in the band since 2001. If I remember correctly, I don't think anybody knew that that was going to happen. I don't think that that was announced beforehand. I don't think that that was well-known knowledge. It just seemed to happen and everybody went wild.
Well, yeah, because he hadn't fucking been in forever.
Also, something to point out is this is the first tour we see Manson's knife microphone that he used for many years after this tour. The next tour is the High End of Low tour in 2009.
Definitely a switch because there's no more Tim Scold.
I also saw this tour when it came to Florida. And from what I can remember, he definitely had some props, but it was still very minimal to what he is known for. But I think as the tour went on, once again, I do think that he did the wrestling ring, which was really interesting. The underlying theme to High End of Low, the album, is the conception of life as a movie. And for the tour, he definitely brought some of that to life. He did a simulation of each song in the live tour as a different act. Manson reapplies his makeup front and center stage, and the stagehands assist him with wardrobe changes in front of everyone. During the European tour, he had a large box that was covered in plastic, and during Great Big White World, Manson would perform in it and he would slash his way out of the box. Also, eventually got back with Slayer for this tour, and it was for the Rockstar Energy Mayhem Festival tour. For most of the tour, Manson did wear a sleeveless black shirt with a razor on it that a lot of fans still to this day love, and they try to find a similar shirt. Also, during the European leg, Manson sang to The Woman That We Will Not name. He sang to her while she was lying in a bed that made it look like she was bleeding out. And he was singing Running to the Edge of the World. And he also brought back the drugs sign that he used for the Mechanical Animals tour for a Dope Show. That tour had a lot of legs. He went everywhere for that tour. He went to Australia, Japan, Europe, you name it. So Gingerfish does leave after this tour, after the High End of Low.
Yeah, I think that's his departure.
So this is where Manson start his Hate Cruel World tour in 2012. And also he does a Twins of Evil tour. He kind of combines the Hate Cruel World tour with the Twins of Evil tour with Rob Zombie. This is the first go at this with them. They repeat it obviously throughout the years, and we're about to see another rendition of this in August of this year. I went to this tour as well. This tour supported the Born Villain album. This is where Manson, I think, really starts minimizing his props. He did still do the podium. He just kind of relied on his performance. There are some tours in between that and the Hell Not Hallelujah tour and the End Times tour, but we're just going to jump into the Hell Not Hallelujah tour and the End Times tour. The Hell Not Hallelujah tour was for the Pale Emperor, and I actually love this tour.
I love this era too.
He is still kind of keeping it with low props, but his lights for this tour, which I don't know if he still has the same guy for them now, and I kind of think that he does because it's very similar, but the lights for this tour were fucking sick. I feel like he really kind of relied on that, which was great. The Pale Emperor is a solid album. One of my favorite shows is the End Times tour where he toured with the Smashing Pumpkins. The set list for that was just so great. I fucking loved it. This had a lot of legs to it as well.
I loved this one because I saw this one in Memphis and then somewhere in Louisiana. I think it was Shreveport. They were such intimate settings. They really stand out to me because they just seemed so much more intimate. And I loved that time. Wasn't that like the fake stained glass behind there with his face on the front of
Yeah,
them?
he had those. I think that's when he
Yeah.
had those stage pictures of him as a saint or some kind of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
some kind of
Yeah.
biblical figure. Yeah, those were really sick. And his stage props did start to come back, but like I said, the lights were so I can't even
Mhm.
describe it. They were the coolest lights I've ever seen. And I was always very up close for those shows for that tour. I've seen footage where some people are in the back of me and kind of further away, and it was just such a light show. It was so great.
There's a lot of smoke in that too. He had the fucking Bible that was on fucking fire. Like he would open it up and it would be on fire. Behold the great red dragon. That shit ruled. I don't know if everybody saw that one, but that era fucking ruled.
There was another tour in 2016 where he went on tour with Slipknot. That was my first meet and greet, and I'll never forget that shit because I almost fucking passed out because I was so nervous. That was also another incredible tour because Manson and Slipknot is like a dream team.
We did the thing backstage and we were like in the basement of the Bridgestone Arena, and it was really something getting all the way downstairs. But it was so hot. I remember there was a girl that literally passed out in the line and hit her head, and she refused to leave because she had this huge goose egg on her head. I mean, she looked like she was going to pass out again. And I remember they had to force her to leave because she looked ill. And I don't know how that worked out. I mean, I don't blame her for trying to stay because she was trying to meet him. But yeah, that was the first time I met him too.
Then we go into 2017 with the Heaven Upside Down tour. I hate to say this because I don't want to focus on this, but going back and watching footage of this tour, this was definitely, I think, the height of his addictions. The tour was great. I will stand by that I have never seen a bad Manson show, but going back and watching this tour footage, even some of the tour footage I have on my phone, because I attended every single tour from Rape of the World. It's hard to watch. He still does a great job, and he's still the Manson that we all loved at that time. And this is obviously in support of his Heaven Upside Down album. I love that album as well. This is also where he breaks his leg. I recently went back to watch the video of him breaking his leg on the stage prop of the huge metal guns he had behind him. It was very painful to watch, and I finally figured out how he broke his leg from that. I don't even know what he was trying to do, but he went to climb up them. He accidentally pulls them down because he is not aware that they're not secured to the floor. I think he was maybe under that impression. When the guns are falling on him, he kicks his leg out to try to keep the guns from falling on him, and that is how he broke his leg. It is so painful to watch because it looks like it was a terrible accident. You can obviously tell that he's in a lot of pain. Also, the night before, a lot of people don't know this, but I knew someone very well that was at this show. He told me there is footage of this. So the show where he broke his leg was at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City on September 30th, 2017. The night before, September 29th in Pittsburgh, he tried to get down from the stage to get to the crowd, and he did fall pretty badly then. So then that happened, and he had to have like a bunch of security guards help him up. So then that happened, and then the night after, he completely shatters his leg. Oh, and that's another thing is we don't really see this as much now. I'm not saying he doesn't do it. He does it once in a while now. But he used to come down all the time and spend time with his fans in the crowd. That's what he was trying to do when he fell the night before he broke his leg. So this tour completely gets canceled because he has to have not only surgery and all kinds of surgery on his leg because he completely shattered his leg, but it also has to heal. He had to reschedule it for months out. I had tickets to go to this in October in Las Vegas, and it happened to be during when I was there celebrating my 30th birthday. I was so stoked. I was like, what are the chances? I not only got the flu so bad that I had to go home early, but Manson clearly canceled his tour. And I had to come back in January. That's when he came out with like a mobilized, really cool looking goth chair.
Another era that if you did not witness that, well, you missed out.
He had to figure out a way to make it work because clearly his leg was not completely healed and he was in a boot, a very bulky, big boot. At some point during this tour, because this tour was a hot mess, but in the best way. I mean, because he really did make his ailments work.
It was debauchery at its finest, like truly.
But also something that he did was really controversial for that was during We Know Where You Fucking Live, he had a camera. It looked like an old school camcorder that they made look like a gun. He would point it at the crowd like he's recording them, but it looks like he's pointing a gun at them. It was very controversial at the time because that shooting in Las Vegas just happened. What was that? It was like some country festival where the guy was up in the hotel room at the Mandalay Bay and he had a massacre. But I only think he did that a few times before they were like, dude, listen, you can't be pointing a fake gun at the crowd.
It was just a bad time.
Judd and Shane were pushing him around in a wheelchair when he was doing that.
Hospital gown on.
Yeah, he had like a hospital gown on.
Yes, because some people have the hospital gowns. They've thrown them up on eBay and shit because he would take it off and throw it out in the crowd.
Judd and Shane also had Manson on a hospital gurney where he was still wearing a hospital gown and he was performing Tattooed in Reverse. And that was definitely a sight to be seen. It was a really, really, really cool wheelchair. He made it work. He did what he had to do. I'm sure that was not easy for him. And his leg was not even fully healed. So I'm sure he was in some kind of pain.
Also, like, who the fuck else has done that?
Right.
I hadn't seen anybody else go on some full-on fucking tours in a goddamn motorized wheelchair. like a gothic motorized wheelchair. That is an era that is truly, you had to be there. You just had to be there.
So then he goes back on tour with Rob Zombie for this Twins of Evil, the Second Coming tour. That's still in support of Heaven Upside Down. I went to that tour and I sweated my fucking ass off in Atlanta. One of the hottest cities I've ever been to. It was in fucking July or some shit.
That one did not come even anywhere close to me because I looked at it, but I think that there was just not anything close, and it was during the summer, and I mean, like you said, if you fucking saw it in Atlanta, I already know how hot that shit was.
Then we go into 2019 where Rob Zombie and Manson continue their tours together, but now it's called Hell Never Dies. And then in 2019, Manson goes on his own headlining tour that started in September of 2019 and ended in November 2019. I did go to his headlining show, the Halloween show in Vegas. And you know what? That was the last time I saw him before what happened to him happened to him. From what I remember, that was also a very great tour. But also, these tours do kind of blend together because when he did tours for Pale Emperor and Heaven Upside Down, he did a lot of touring for those albums. A tour that never happened in 2020, which was the Ozzy Osbourne No More Tours 2 tour. That was canceled because of Ozzy's health and because of COVID. COVID was popping off during that time, unfortunately. That tour never happened. I had front row seats to that show, and that's definitely a tour that I wish would have happened. That would have been incredible to see both of them together, especially since Ozzy has passed since then. Another tour that never happened was the We Are Chaos tour. I mean, we don't know anything about that tour, that, if it was even really supposed to happen or not, but from the pattern in Manson's career, it definitely seemed like that was something that was going to happen. And us fans were declined that because of the untrue allegations against Manson. It ruined a lot of upcoming projects for Manson, that whole Me Too hoax. We missed out on a lot during We Are Chaos, and even to this day, we can't really see anything live because he was unable to fulfill his obligations of promoting it per his contract. Those are two tours, the Ozzy tour and the We Are Chaos tour, that I definitely wish would have came to fruition. So after his 2019 tour, we didn't see him for years. We didn't see Manson for 5 freaking years. As you can see from our episode, Manson toured a lot. He was one of the most toured artists, I think, ever. He had so many different legs, so many different versions of a similar tour or supporting the same album. Not only did COVID hit and make all of us very depressed because a lot of us thought we would never not only not see a Manson concert, but just concerts in general. And then what happened to Manson with the allegations and whatnot, it really was a dark time that we were never going to see Manson again. 2024 fucking hits, and Manson comes out swinging with One Assassination Under God. He goes on tour with Five Finger Death Punch. He is the support for Five Finger Death Punch. I'm sure that threw a lot of us off. I am not a fan of Five Finger Death Punch. I don't think I've ever really properly heard a song from them. But, kudos to them with taking Manson back because that was his first tour since the allegations, and they took him with open arms. It was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. I was not able to go to the first one because tickets sold out so fast. I went on August 5th. 2024 in Homedale, New Jersey. This was a whole seated venue. There was no pit. I went a little crazy and I bought front row tickets because I'm like, fuck this. This is the first time I've seen Manson in 5 years. This is after all that bullshit happened to him. I don't remember how much the tickets were. To be fair, to be completely honest, they were not that bad compared to what tickets are now. I mean, they were on StubHub. They were obviously marked up, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to travel all the way to New Jersey to see my hero come back on stage, I'm going to be in the front. If I have the opportunity to do it, I'm going to be in the front. So I did that, and it was one of the most special concerts I have ever seen of Manson. I'm going to tell you why. So at that time, Five Finger Death Punch had a meet and greet. They both had meet and greets, and I did the meet and greet for Manson. But my original ticket had some seats that were a few rows back. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And I actually ended up giving those to a fan just for free because he was saying how bad his tickets were. And I was like, here you go. Like, you can have these because I have these. I have the front row. Because Five Finger Death Punch was the main act, their VIP package came with front row tickets. So a lot of the fans in the front were Five Finger Death Punch fans. There was only me, my friend that I was with, and maybe 2 or 3 other people that were very much there for Manson. He was still trying to get into the groove because at this point he only performed 2 shows prior. He had a Five Finger Death Punch show in Hershey, and then he had a headlining show in Silver Springs. So he was still kind of getting into the groove, and I could just tell that he was just very comfortable with the Manson fans that were in the front. And it was just a very special time. And I also will get into something else that happened during this concert, but I'm going to have to wait till we talk about our favorite concert moments. But he was sober, healthy, he was driven, and it was just a moment and a time for a Manson fan to witness his comeback like that. And he fucking nailed that show. He nailed that show. He was on his game. It was so different to see because I hate to bring up his addictions, but we've seen him drunk and high for so many years. And then to see him completely sober and just totally obliterate the stage, it was something to really be proud of and something to witness. And I'm very, very lucky that I was able to make it to the show that I did. And I was able to see that tour.
I was shocked that I just had a tour date for Arkansas because, like I said, he doesn't really come here at all. I was shocked. And shout out to Walmart Amp, but I was very stoked that it was not in Little Rock close to me, but at least it was 3 hours away, and it was easy enough for me to get to somewhere that I travel to all the time. I had that meet and greet, and it was hot as motherfucking balls outside. I remember sweating, which I won't even bring up the didn't know that he had a hat on thing. That show, I remember I was anticipating him coming out for the show, the actual show. I remember he came out and I started crying. I remember my husband just kind of like, he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." It's just very overwhelming seeing him come out again. He did not miss a lick the whole time. I didn't hear anything go wrong, no nothing, and it was unreal to see that show.
Manson definitely came back as the best version of himself, and none of
Absolutely.
us were expecting that. Then he takes off to Europe and does a headlining tour. Then he comes back in 2025 and does his own headlining tour of One Assassination Under God. This has a shit ton of legs as well. This was just last year. We
Yeah.
saw him a ton last year. This is definitely one of his best tours, and I got to see him all over the country for this, and I also went overseas for the first time to see him for this tour in Lisbon, and that was a whole different animal. Something to add about the 2025 tour is on May 2nd, 2025, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Me and Jenna both were there. We got to witness Long Hard Road Out of Hell being played live for the first time in 28 years. That was Manson history. Both of our reactions when we saw that live is pretty priceless. Another thing to add is during his European dates, he added the red neon mob scene sign. And he also went back on the stilts for the first time in years. Something else that he did on the 2025 tour is he brought back Mechanical Animals, the song that he played for numerous dates. Thank God. Thank God that he came back and he is doing these tours and he's so on top of his game and he's not messing around and he sounds great. We're seeing Manson at his best form. We really are. We have a whole year this upcoming year of more Manson tours, and we're just so excited to see what he has in store for us this year.
From the first show back with Five Finger Death Punch, and that I don't know how many times that was that I saw him, but from that first show that was in Rogers, and then the Amsterdam show was so sick, and that was crazy witnessing that during some cold time in Europe. That was a sick show. And then I don't remember how many times after that. There have been so many different aspects and things that make them so special. It definitely is the time to see him.
Me and Jenna now are going to share real fast some of our favorite shows because I've been seeing him for the last 20 years. Jenna's been seeing him about the same amount of time, if not longer. There are some shows that stand out to me and some moments that stand out to me. I mean, I have way too many moments for me to recite.
We can't even remember all the times we've seen him, so it's going to be hard to pinpoint some of this stuff.
The one show that sticks out to me, well, there's a couple, but one show that sticks out to me for the set list at least, is the End Times tour when I saw him with the Smashing Pumpkins. And this show that I'm specifically talking about was in Tampa. I just remember the set list being really good. He played Lunchbox and he played, I think, Rock is Dead. I've talked about this before on the show. He did attempt to play Man That You Fear instead of Coma White at the end. He couldn't remember the words. He couldn't remember the words and he walked off stage and he ended up playing Coma White. But listen, if he would have ended with Man That You Fear, that would have been my favorite show of all time. That's one of my favorite songs, period. And I've never seen that song live. A moment, and I brought this up a little bit earlier, was at the New Jersey show I went to with Five Finger Death Punch. So he did come up to me and my friend, and at the end when he was doing Beautiful People, he was not coming to the crowd at all. He would come up a little bit, but he wouldn't get too close. The stage was really cool at this venue because it was very low. It came up like maybe a little bit above my waist, which is interesting because it's a huge venue. It's a huge amphitheater. He walked over to me and my friend because clearly we were Manson fans. We were fucking freaking out the whole time. And I had the Antichrist flag. He came over and he put out his hand for the both of us to hold. And I was so excited. I'm not joking when I say this. And he may or may not remember this. I don't know if he'll remember this or not. But I was so excited when I was holding his hand. I was fucking freaking out. There's videos of me that other people have taken because me and my friend were on the big screen because he came up to us. And you can just see me like jumping up and down. I was so excited. I almost pulled this man off the stage.
The video is hilarious.
I almost pulled this man off the stage. People won't notice it, but I have a video of it where I am taking the video. You can see it in his eyes. His eyes got really big because I almost pulled this man off the stage because I was so fucking excited. I was holding his hand and I was freaking out, and his eyes get really big when I'm about to pull him off the stage. And he like had to hop back.
You almost
I feel so
you almost pulled that man off tour. We almost had a canceled tour.
I really, I feel so bad, but I was just that excited. I didn't think anything like that was going to happen because he wasn't really coming to the crowd. Usually between a stage and the crowd, clearly there's like a rail, but there's also security guards, but there was none of that. It was like the rail and the stage. So like all he had to do was just walk over and kneel down, and that's all he had to do. So he was right there. And I literally almost pulled him off the stage. I'll have to repost the video for everyone to see if they can see. And then he took the flag, the Antichrist flag, and it looked like he was going to try and wear it to some degree. I love that moment. And I know that it's probably super embarrassing for me to share that, but it's true. My last favorite memory is when Manson played in Grand Rapids in 2025 when he did Long Hard Road Out of Hell, just because I never thought that that would be a song that I would hear live ever. The reaction that I had during that, it was like I was having an exorcism. I freaked out so bad and so loud that I'm sure people in the back heard me. But that was really cool to see live. And very lucky that we were the first crowd to see that. All right, Jenna, what about you?
I mean, obviously, your first time seeing Manson is always very memorable, which I don't know if I've told the story on here before, but I was 17 when I saw Manson for the first time, and that was attending Ozfest. And I was 17 and I went with all of my other friends who were also like 17 and 18 years old, and none of us thought about wearing sunscreen. So by the time everybody was playing on the main stage of Ozfest, there was only 2 stages for Ozfest. There was no going back and forth either. It was once everybody on the second stage played, that was it. It was done, and then you went over to the main stage to watch all of the headliners. So I was sitting through, it was Chevelle and Disturbed, and then Manson, and then Korn, and then I don't remember if it was Ozzy or Black Sabbath, but either way, it was so unbelievably hot and no sunscreen. I was so sunburned. It was horrible. Like, it was absolutely horrible. Like, I ended up having to go to the emergency room when I got back
Oh my
home.
God.
I remember getting into the shower that night and just crying because my skin hurt so bad. And then we had to drive all the way back home to Arkansas because this was in Maryland Heights, Missouri. It was really cool because after they played, because like I said, the changing over the stages was a little bit different because it was like Manson ended and then Korn was coming up next, but there was a little intermission, you know. It was really cool because we walked around, everybody in the band was standing around the stage area, so we got to meet John Five, we got to meet Gingerfish, we got to meet Pogo, and we got to meet Tim. Manson, of course, was not out there. John Five was just the sweetest soul. He is so nice. Him and Gingerfish. I wanted a picture so bad with John Five. I had caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror in the bathroom, and I was like, "Oh my god, I look like a fucking lobster." I looked terrible. He was so sweet. He signed my ticket. And he was like, "Are you sure you don't want a picture?" And I was like, "I'm sure. I don't want to remember myself meeting you and looking like this." He kissed my hand. He was so sweet. I need to find the picture because Kyle did take a picture with him and he took a picture with Gingerfish, and it was hilarious because they are in that white makeup and Kyle is literally just bright red. You've been waiting, you know, to meet them all this time, or just like anybody, and then you do, and you're so excited, but I could not commemorate that. So that was always hilarious. And then years down the line, I don't know if it was 2018, 2019, when I met John Five again, I told him that story and he was like, "You got to keep on sunscreen." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry." The only other ones that really stand out, I still love that Shreveport show, and I'm not even going to say that it was anything like super standoutish. It was just so intimate. He had the podium out. He did get on the stilts, and I had never seen him on the stilts, and that was the first time I saw that. The Bible that was on fire, and I was so excited about that because there is a video. Obviously it's not still on his Instagram, but there is that funny video of him opening it up backstage and him saying "Flames, hallelujah." Other than that, I would definitely say seeing him on my 40th birthday and seeing him perform Mechanical Animals while holding Kyle's hand and crying. That was very special just because it was my 40th birthday and I was seeing my favorite dude, and I was getting to witness that with my husband, and that's a very special album to us. I don't know, you can't like really beat that. Recently all these shows have been good, so it's hard to pick them out. Seeing him for the first time in Europe at Amsterdam, that was really cool. Just getting to experience a European crowd, it's just, you know, it's just different. They're all special in their own ways. I mean, my first time was definitely very memorable.
One of our very good listeners, Justin, said, "There's nothing like seeing Manson for the first time or the last time."
Nice. That is very true.
Something else that I wanted to share real fast is that we did a voting on our Instagram about what you guys thought Manson's best entrance was to a show. We did the Dead to the World entrance, Rock is Dead entrance, when he raises up from the TV cross, and the Guns Got a Government entrance. And it was very close. The voting was very close between Dead to the World and the Rock is Dead tour. But Rock is Dead tour with the raising up with the TV cross definitely won. We also asked what some of your favorite shows were. That was definitely a mixed bag. However, we did have a lot of Manson's comeback tour being a fan favorite. So let's just end it on that. Like we said before, we have a whole year of Manson tours. We have the spring tour about to kick off. We have the Rob Zombie tour about to kick off. We have the 30th anniversary of Antichrist Superstar. There's a European tour in there somewhere in between all this.
During the summer.
During the summer. We have so much this year, and we are so grateful and so thankful. And you know what? At the end of the day, Manson doesn't have to tour. He does not have to tour. He does not have to put out another album. He does not have to tour. He has proven himself. He has so many albums and tours behind his back. But he still chooses to do it, and we are so incredibly grateful because I feel like being a Manson fan, we have 5 seasons. There's usually 4 seasons, right? There's spring, summer, fall, winter. And then as a Manson fan, you have tour season.
Man.
And sometimes that can last all year. We are so grateful. Hopefully this does come out right before tour kicks off. So this is kind of an ode to what's about to come this year. Because what he has given us since he's come back is honestly not only admirable, but it really is fucking incredible. So thank you, Manson. And we cannot wait to see your live performances this year. And we cannot wait for chapter 2 to come out. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to episode 16. We hope you enjoyed it. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Manson Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Alex Sinclair.
And you can find me on the gram at Jenna X Arkansas.
Thank you guys again for listening, and we will catch you on tour this year, and we will catch you on the next episode.